I am super pumped today. I am completely pumped. I am here with a fantastic, incredibly creative individual. His name is Dean O'Callaghan. Did I say that correctly?
Yes, you did.
Fantastic. Now, Dean is from the UK. Dean is one of the people that I am honored to. He went ahead. He bought Brand Intervention. And most people read Brand Intervention and they take the various tools, and there it is. He's got it right there. And a lot of people will buy it and they'll write incredible things, they'll tweet things, they'll share things, they'll talk about how they've used it, et cetera, et cetera. But Dean went intergalactic. And how he basically embraced the book. Dean, why don't you give a little background? I mean, and I'll just state this. I discovered this because Dean had shared something on his Instagram, and it was a page of a journal. And Dean, why don't you share with those watching what happens and what prompted this, etc.
Okay, excellent. Thanks for the introduction. So basically, since I was at uni, I sort of started reading lots of design books. And obviously, like you mentioned in the book, there's thousands of branding books. And if you widen that out to design books in general, there's hundreds and thousands. So what I started to do to try and retain all of this information rather than going in with my eyes and then disappearing was to kind of try and condense it down into sort of sketch notes using little illustrations, which is something one of the lecturers tried to do when I was at uni. But I think he was originally inspired by the TED Talks, where the guy's illustrating them on the whiteboard. Yeah. So he was giving lectures with like an overhead projector, and it was going on a big screen. And then we would use that to make our own notes. And then more recently, I've just started to, obviously using Instagram and looking on Pinterest, found that there's a lot more like people doing these kind of sketch notes from videos or from books. So basically that's what I've sort of tried to do. And I've obviously started uploading them to Instagram to try and hopefully inspire other people or to share the knowledge, basically.
Being a native New Yorker, I was like, holy shit, this is freaking awesome, right? I remember looking at the first one, which I'm looking at right here. I was like, holy shit. And you had the little Brand Intervention thing in the top, and then you had basically, this was the first one that I saw. And you'll see it says Brand Intervention, and it's like, does your brand message engage your audience in 8 seconds? I mean, there's these little highlights. It's like this incredible handwritten kind of little infographic / summary notes and the 3 phases customer journey. It blew my mind, not only because you did it, but it was so authentic. You were really making it your own. And so you ended up doing 9 spreads of this, which, blew my mind even. I was like, holy crap. And so, of course, then I reached out and I said, Dean, man, we have to share this with the world, dude. This is incredible. Yeah. And you've kind of broken it part 1, part 2. So you've kind of given them parts and as you broke it down.
Yeah, that's just for to keep track of the pages. And it's funny you should say about reinterpreting it, because what I normally find especially when I was at uni, you do like books, and it's quite easy to scale the text down to keywords or key points. But with your book, I was actually trying to do that, but then I would go to the end, start a note, and then realize that the bit before I actually explained gave meaning to the first bit. So I think the reason it turned into 9 spreads was because every time I would think, oh, I can cut that bit. Well, actually I can't, because it's so succinct and concise. It makes it really difficult to do that. So it's a real credit to the way you've put the book together, that there's no fat. It's all good. Yeah. I mean, it's all meat.
How long have you been doing these journals? Because these are impressive as hell.
I've probably been doing them since I was at college, so it's 8 or 9 years now. But
8, 9 years.
I've been doing them on and off for a while. Like I've got, I'm not sure you'll be able to see them on the screen, but these are the really old ones. These little tiny
That's small? What's like 4 by 5 inches, 4 by 6 inches?
Yeah, it's kind of like postcard size, pretty much.
Wow. That's small. All right.
And they've got, at the back, they've got old business cards and
Incredible.
random sketches. So these are from a design and business lecture. So these are different strategy.
Yeah. But the interesting thing though is like, that to me is more of a chart. Whereas what you've done with these are, I love the fact that you went ahead and you kind of combined some nuances of typography, little drawings. Like I love on this part 3 where you talk like take bold steps, and you have these little feet coming out of the word steps. And I love the little illustrative elements that you've incorporated. It just has a real sensibility, and obviously it was organic. I don't think you did not do a sketch and then say, oh, let me fill it in. They organically grew each page, right?
Yeah, and there's parts of it where you can see I've ran out of space, or there's bits overlapping, or like I was saying, I've started at the end of the page and actually gone backwards. But I've tried to I used to always obviously start in the top left and then kind of steadily work down. But then I find it's very regimented and when you do that. So I started just randomly starting at different points. With your book, it's great because you can actually put a quote somewhere and then kind of work around the quote. Almost the same structure that you would do a mind map or something like that.
Exactly.
The elements sort of came in. There was a while ago, I was stumbling through Pinterest and found this person. I think it's the name was Tanamoy May or something like that. And they started to do them with TED Talks and different other speeches. And they had these little cool figurine illustrations. Yeah. I thought, well, actually, that's a really good, especially being a visual person, having that kind of visual cue actually really helps. And for like Instagram or whatever, that will pop out of the page a little bit more than reading a boring text, let's say.
Yeah, totally. And even on this little one where you took the quote, cookie cutters are for baking, not branding. And you have this little cookie, then you have this little cookie and the cookie cutter. And I mean, I think they're freaking inspired. They blew me away. And I love the fact that you went ahead, you grabbed a marker, you did it. To me, there's an element of jazz. There was this improvisational spontaneity about it that I think is brilliant.
It's great because I love jazz. Something about jazz and big band music that just puts me in a sort of state where I'm able to just think.
Yeah, I could totally see where you would get an incredible amount of value out of doing this. Like for you, it would really be like you have really absorbed it and retained it. Do you find that to be the case?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you're taking so much information now, it's just ridiculous. So having something where I can just sit, have music on in the background and also it gives me a chance to sort of really think about it. So if I read a paragraph, it goes in my head and then I kind of think, how am I going to put that onto the page? Is it a little illustration or are the words just enough with a different font or a different arrangement?
Yeah.
It definitely helps with retention. And obviously I've got notebooks for 10 years worth of notebooks that are
That's amazing.
Sometimes trying to go back and I wrote that down 2 years ago. Where is that? And then you flick back through it and then you get distracted. It's a massive well of.
So here's a question that I have though. But do you find that you then read like a number of chapters and you go, okay, I have so much going on in my head, and now you start creating, or do you kind of read a little bit, you're inspired, fill up a little bit of the page and read a bit? What's your process?
It's a little bit, it's more of a read a little bit, and then, because by the time I've read 3 paragraphs, it's, you forgot the first one already. I mean, well, that's what I find. So I try to sort of do it bit by bit, and if, like, especially with your book, you have to kind of read 3 or 4 pages for some of the theories and the ideas to make sense. So you end up is obviously reading to the end of a bit and then kind of trying to condense that down. It kind of depends on the structure of the book. I mean, yours is really easy to get through because of that structure, that smaller structure. But obviously, I've tried doing it with a couple of textbooks that we've done before, where it's a lot more like information heavy. But the problem is, again, you end up spreading it out across a sort of 9-page spread, and then actually you read it back and you're like, well, that's just waffle. There's no meat to this. So I'm going to have to try and either rejig it, or then you just stick the 2 pages together and start again because you can't. Well, because that's the great thing about working in biro straight away and with markers is once you put down a mark, that's the mark. So you either have to work with it or just forget about it.
No, I love that. Yeah, exactly. There is no undo. There's no undo button. I love that. I love that. Yeah, you've done like 9 awesome spreads that are just outstanding. I just love how you've punctuated these different points. I think that they're brilliant, and they're just inspired. And I never in a million years anticipated someone would sit and do what you've done. That's the freaking cool all by itself. I was like, that's amazing. It's just absolutely amazing. I think any author who has a great book with incredible takeaways should reach out to you, Dean, and basically say, hey, do this for me. And, and just say how much I'll pay. I'll wire the money now. So, that's as far as, this is amazing.
That would be great. The little side hustle, that would be great.
I'm curious about one other point. You display a sense of space, sense of layout, sense of typography and scale. You have little illustrative components. I'm curious because I am very much of the school that it's like, here, learn to draw first, then if you choose to use the computer as your pencil, quote unquote, then that's fine. But I find that a lot of people, a lot of the talents today, they start on the computer and they're dependent on the computer and don't have the other skills. I'm curious about your background. What's your skill set?
Went through normal secondary school or high school, as you would have it there. And then I went to college, and that was where really I did a foundation degree, an art degree, and that's where really this whole sketch notes thing come about. Because for the first time, you're kind of exposed to a whole range of media. So we were doing photography, print, and of course, it was over a space of a year. So you've got to retain all of how to set up a light box, how to process photography from scratch using film, how to use a silk screening machine, and all these kind of things. And that's really where the first notebook, I don't have that one with me, but there's like sketches in it where they're actually that old now. They were done in pencil, so they're actually starting to fade out. But it's all how to set up the screen printing machine, what kind of ratio aspects for the lighting in photography. So, and that was really when I started to actually realize that these were of like more value to me, retaining that information, because I would refer back to it 6 months down the line and still understand what the core principles of it was, even if the doodle didn't make sense, or because it kind of jogs your memory, that visual memory.
Yeah.
And then from that point, I didn't like computers. I was rubbish at computers all the way through university, where I studied creative product design. So my background is very hands-on and with that slight sort of 3D technical aspect. And then straight out there, I was into sort of the gifting industry. So I worked for a company called Wild and Wolf. So they have multiple brands across all different categories aimed at different target audiences. And that was really where I found my specialism in packaging. So I'm there, I'm part of the central design team at Wild and Wolf, and my focus is on packaging and innovating packaging. But because it's like the gifting market, the speed of development is a lot faster. So we have a whole range of products of all different branding, needing some kind of 3D shelf presence. And obviously that has to change from brand to brand to really stand out.
Well, that's excellent, man. It's a fantastic skill set. And I think that's a skill set that is not as common as it should be, for sure. Total side note, yesterday was my birthday. So I'm taking this.
Happy birthday.
I'm taking this is like my birthday gift. This is freaking outrageously brilliant. So, so it's incredible, absolutely incredible. And I cannot thank you enough for sharing it. And I'm going to share it with as many people, and and I'll have a link to your Instagram like you gave me, so people can learn more about you and discover it. And total outstanding, man. Absolutely outstanding.
I'm going to do the same with your book. I've already told everyone at work about it, so I'll be handing it around, because I think it, like I was saying, I think it's going to be really helpful because we're kind of at the sort of start point where we're starting to sort of really branch out into social media and trying to build these brands on another level beyond the product, which was a really key point in your book, the sort of 66% rule, which I thought was brilliant. And it was just at the right time, at the right point, especially in my job, just thinking about like I say, bringing all these elements together. And actually, it was just the right point, right time. Such a good book. Honestly, it's one of the best I've read. It's brilliant.
Well, I totally appreciate it. I really do appreciate it. I'm very sincerely, and thank you. This is like the most amazing thank you that I could ever, just this whole collection here. And I'm just going to share it with everyone. And tell all your team members, say, get your own freaking copy. And then when I come out to the UK and, for some conference or some keynote or something like that, tell them to show up with their book and I'll sign it. And if they all just have your book, I'll sign your book, and they could look on in envy. It's like, is that what they want to experience? I don't think so. I think they're going to want to go, where's my book?
Yeah, maybe I'll have a little padlock of it when I take it into work.